So as we get settled back in, I am going to ask or invite Liz and Lindsay back to the stage, and they are going to do another exercise with us. And I think it'll resonate with a lot of people who know and love Jackson so well, because nature is such a big part of how we stay connected to ourselves and our community and really our potential. So with that, Liz and Lindsay, please come on up. Thank you.
Thanks. We've got our outdoor education props here, so it's a good security blanket. I realized we didn't really I'm Liz.
Yeah, I'm Lindsay.
We're not one amorphous blob.
Of Liz and Lindsay.
Sweet. So yeah, Liz Hardwick. I'll stop touching the mic. Gosh, it's so amazing to be here. It feels really special to be sharing the stage with Bonnie, who just electrified me. I kind of almost don't want to be here right now because I just want to dive right into the life brief. I have so much work to do. Yeah, and having your presence last night, Ruth, was so enriching and real, and invited some really deep questions into me. So thank you. Gosh, so Lindsay and I are integral coaches. We do really deep developmental coaching, and then we've just started taking people out into the wilderness and doing developmental coaching as we do expeditions. And gosh, I have so much admiration for what Bonnie has done with the life brief work, because like all of what we do in these like really deep coaching journeys is all happening inside this beautiful book that you can read on your own time and like unfold all of the things you need without ever having to go through a coaching process. So I'm a huge fan of what you've done. Well, sure, we all need coaching, and what an amazing tool. So I'm so excited to dive into what we're gonna do today and just to feel what's gonna unfold for me and for all of us. And we're also here to talk about authenticity. And more than that, I think we're here to practice authenticity. And so part of my invitation to myself in coming up on stage is to really feel into what is authentically true and real for me in this moment. Yeah, and to be honest, like there's a part of me that's like, it feels hard to talk about personal development right now when the world is exploding. Yeah, my heart is pretty shattered around what's happening in Gaza right now. And I think there's an intention for me in like stepping into this space to really think about like, okay, how do I want to do authentic leadership? How do I want to show up in my community? How do I want to show up for my friends in the conversations that I want to be in? How do I show up for the world? So I'm holding that piece. Yeah, and the other piece, so Lynn's called me up a number of months ago now and was like, hey, we've been invited to do this thing to speak at the Womentum conference in Jackson on leadership. And a part of me went like, whoa, this is a very cool opportunity. And then another part of me went like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Like, I'm this like queer, kind of non-binary person, like showing up in this like women's space, like, part of that sort of rubs me the wrong way, or there's this like, oh, I don't know that I totally belong, or is this like my place to speak in this space? And I think, like Ruth, you really invited me into this idea of unhiding, of like, okay, so part of me unhiding is to like bring some of that qualm onto the stage and say like, oh, this is what feels real for me. So that's showing up a little bit as I dive into this. And it feels really exciting to like feel some stretch, feel what's going to unfold, and be able to do this work with Lindsay today.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank God.
And Liz. Yeah, practicing being real, practicing authenticity. In my intro too, I want to share the paradox that's inside me. I too was over there taking notes, seeking clarity through Bonnie's work, and thinking like, ooh, It's so comfy for me out there in the audience with my notebook. Like, wow, that would be so nice. And yet, something called me to courage, to unhide, to step forward, to believe that I have something to offer this amazing community. And I feel both grateful and proud. And I'm going to ask for your support, knowing that this is a stretch. I'm stretching into a new way, new ways that we're going to need to pursue these briefs. So thank you for holding my paradox. Thank you for holding our messiness as we share stories and explore our ways, our unique ways today.
Yeah. Thanks, Linz. I am very glad that you're not in the audience right now, writing in your notebook. So thank you for being here. So our intention today is to take you on a little journey that is really about getting intimately familiar with your way. Bonnie's giving us an amazing invitation, which is to dive into the thing that matters most, that gripping, visceral knowing, and to get really clear about that. This is big work. And we're all going to do this work in really unique and specific ways. So we're going to introduce a layer or a frame that we use in integral coaching that hopefully gives you a really clear sense of what is my way. And then also an invitation to feel into some stretch. What would some new way moves be? What would me doing this life brief work a little bit differently, a little bit wider, with a little bit more choice, look and feel like? So that's kind of where we're going. And this idea, I think, as humans, I feel this so strongly in my coaching work, is humans do have this real deep desire for evolution towards more belonging, towards more connection. And there are often pieces that feel a little bit murky or a little bit out of view. And so part of what we're doing in coaching is just widening the perspective to see some of that stuff that's a little bit in the shadows. Okay. I think the thing I have to do now is talk about my way. Okay, so the part of me that just showed up, me introducing myself, talking about my angst a little bit about being on stage, that's part of my way. I can see what's wrong with things. There's a way almost of looking for the battlegrounds that are out there in the world. And anticipating that it's going to be a fight. For instance, I love Womentum. We have Womentum in my community. It is beautiful and wonderful what they are doing for people. The people who run it, I adore. And I can't bring myself to join. I can't, because of the stuff I talked about before. There's a part of me that's always going to fight. It's going to resist. It's going to see the problems. It's part of my way. Getting to know this way has been really, really helpful for me and has led me to some insights. I want to take you a little bit into context of me. 5 years ago, I had 2 kids who were under 2 years old. I had a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I was trying to launch a coaching business. I was trying to do that in 10 hours a week of the paid childcare time that we had. I had just found coaching, and it felt like such a fit. I was like, oh, this is the thing that I am meant to be doing on the planet. And I was struggling harder than I had ever struggled in my life. Prior to having kids, I had this 20-year career with the National Outdoor Leadership School, leading amazing adventures all over the world, taking people down rivers in the Amazon, in the Canadian Arctic, in the Himalayas, in Patagonia, big, life-changing expeditions where people were finding their truths and unfolding into deep, big stuff. And I was hooked. I was like hooked on that expansion, on watching people change, in my own change. And then my wife and I decided that we wanted to do family. We wanted to like nest and build a home. So we moved indoors. We moved to Lander. I slept more nights in a bed than on a thermarest. And we had babies. And it was really hard for me to stay home with 2 small kids. I was crushed. I could lead people across a glacier in a whiteout, no problem. What I could not do was figure out nap schedules, figure out how to meet these little people's needs, figure out how to even have my own needs. I was collapsing inside. And at the same time, I was also trying to launch a coaching business. And the coaching was wonderful. I loved coaching. But getting this like business off the ground, like being an entrepreneur, like, oh my God, it was impossible. And so part of my way in there was both to like see what was wrong out there and also see what was wrong with me. I was really hyper-focused on like all of the things that were wrong with me that I wasn't doing to get this business off the ground because I was exhausted, I was depressed, I felt trapped. And so what was funny, like we're about to share a model with you that I find incredibly useful. And I was using this model with my clients, but I couldn't see it for myself. I couldn't see what was happening to me. Little by little, I started stretching, I started moving. I was like in my own coaching process. So I was like doing these expansive things. And the things that started happening that really changed for me is that I needed relationships. I was so isolated as this stay-at-home struggling parent. I needed to be in like robust and rich community with other coaches who were also struggling to get their businesses off the ground and realize like, oh, hey, this is really freaking hard. It is really hard work to be an entrepreneur and like birth this little business and give it legs. It wasn't because there was something wrong with me. So I started building like really deep, nourishing, sustaining relationships in that space. I needed Lindsay. I needed my friend Lindsay to start her coaching practice so that we could do this wilderness-based work together. I had dreamt, like when I went from leading expeditions to moving inside, I was like, okay, but I still want to do wilderness-based expeditions with like deep developmental coaching. For 4 years, I dreamed about this while I also had small kids and was working for 10 hours a week and couldn't get it off the ground. And it wasn't until I had a friend and a colleague and a collective space to work in that this thing could happen that I'd been dreaming about. I also needed to surrender my armor. So part of what was happening as I was sort of in this like inward space was I was like, I had this really deep belief that I couldn't coach or I couldn't really believe in my coaching if my shit was not together. And let me tell you, my shit was not together. And so I was like, ooh, how can I really believe in myself as a coach if like I'm floundering over here? So there was this gradual unmasking or unhiding that happened. To this day, the most popular thing that I've written on my blog or in social media is a piece called Instructions on What to Do When You Feel Broken. And I got so much positive feedback from that, and I started realizing like, oh, this me gets to be seen in this world. I get to bring this out. And so I needed to start doing these moves of unmasking, getting seen, letting my armor down, letting down that part of me that sort of sees everything wrong out there and then everything wrong in here, giving that one a little bit of a break. And I needed to do like deep, durable, sustaining relationships. And I needed to like truly believe in my gifts. So all of these things started happening. Guess what? The business started happening. That work couldn't have happened without a really deep and exquisite understanding of my current way and some of the ways that I was working with. So that's kind of where we want to take you today, is getting really intimately familiar with your way. Sorry, I keep doing that. I really love touching my chest. It's my grounding right here. That's a little bit about my way.
Yeah.
I want to hear about your way, Linz.
I'm so glad you asked. Yeah, Bonnie said before, when we hear other people's stories, what bubbles up? What resonates? What are the words? So we are excited to share our stories and others, and then to turn the spotlight on your ways. So you have this full awareness going into work with Bonnie. So yeah, I definitely have a way, and Liz needed relationship in her life, and yet my life was oriented to relationship. I was obsessed with relationship, you could say. I was socialized in Nebraska and in a family that said, be nice, don't rock the boat, keep other people comfortable, keep it safe. And so when big emotions happened in my family, I got small and I strategized how I could dissipate the tension, how I could bring us back to equilibrium. There are great strengths here, right? Steady, welcoming, non-judgmental. I'm going to carry those with me forever, and yet it becomes limiting. When I moved to Wyoming, started working for Knowles, started leading 30-day outdoor trips in Alaska, horse packing in southern Utah, dropping slot canyons, I was stretching so much and still would find myself on the periphery. I was supporting the team. I was keeping the peace. I was there, but I wasn't fully there. Parts of me were hidden. So, okay, just to get kind of a sense of my way, what it was like to be me. I'm gonna need some audience participation. Our first poll, please raise your hand if you generally approve of my presence on this stage. All right, okay, I think I see most hands. I don't know if everyone heard, or it's a little dark in the corner, like. Okay, that's actually the end of the poll. I'm all done. And imagine thinking I could manage everyone's experience of me up here. It's tiring. It's tiring. There's no time left for, like, what's going on in here. I brought it to romantic relationship. I brought that belief of, like, I make space for you. I dive into your dreams and passions. My last relationship with a wonderful man, so driven, so passionate. People, you wouldn't believe the number of full weekends I spent building a rammed earth chicken coop. Like, the chicken palace, beautiful. I truly believed this was the path to our connection. It's a nuanced story, right? I chose it. I wanted to be there. There's a lot of positive to it, and yet I wasn't making space for myself. I wasn't fully showing up as a partner. I was flowing around people with stronger instincts than myself. So I've been exploring new ways and new patterns. And as I introduce myself, boy, do I need Bonnie and Ruth's work. I'm so happy to be here. Showing up, getting messy, figuring out in me, what is that clarity? What is it that I want to offer? And building a life with me at the center, that self-centeredness that actually allows for rich relationship. So I'm sourcing my wisdom before I act with my business, with Liz, with my own coaching business. Okay, the poll kind of feels like this now, okay? Please raise your hand if you generally approve of my presence here on stage. Okay. How do I know I'm okay up here? I am doing my best to tell my story as I know it now. And I trust that if it resonates for even one person, I've done my job. Okay. If anyone has your hand up, you can put it down. Whoa, that feels easier. managing one. Thank you for your participation. Polls are over. So I keep my way in my heart. I can read the room. I'm very compassionate. I can feel other people's stories. And I'm working to bring my full self to these relationships. And so, I'd like to remind you that we're outdoor educators. And if you were at Ruth's speech last night, she said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to make you turn to the person next to you and talk." And I want to tell you that now you should worry, okay? This is when you start worrying.
We're those people.
We're those people. We love a pair and share. We love a pair and share. So here's what we're going to do. We laugh about it, and yet we're ready for this, right? The next step is, can I speak and be witnessed? What does that feel like? And you don't have to have any answers yet. In a moment, we're going to have you pair up with someone you don't know well, and you're going to refer back to what you wrote after Liz's grounding exercise. What were those words that bubbled up? Purpose, contribution. And more than what you say, we want you to notice your way in this exercise. So maybe your way is like, oh, I'm not ready. I don't have the right answer yet. How do I do this right? Or maybe your way is, can I go to the bathroom right now? Can I hide from this intimate witnessing with someone I don't know? Can I avoid this stretch? Or maybe your way is, I remember what bubbled up, but I think I have a more impressive thing that I could say to this person. Notice your way. So here are the instructions. Person 1, for half of the 5 minutes, that's 2.5 minutes, you're going to share your name, where you're from, what bubbled up for you in that grounding exercise, words, phrases, what matters right now, and really importantly, what it feels like to be witnessed in your body, what thoughts, what kind of way is showing up. Person 2, the listener, that's your only job. Deeply listen. You don't have to fix, cheerlead, recommend the perfect book for this person's path. Deeply listen. If I'm the talker and I run out of things to say, the listener can simply ask, is there anything else? Pause, go inside, feel what comes up. Feel what it feels like to be witnessed. Okay. If mobility isn't feeling accessible right now, that's fine. Raise your hand. Someone will come to you. And if not, time for the first stretch. So please stand. You might have to move to the aisle to find someone new. You might have to turn around. And I'll let you know when it's time to switch.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you.
You might have to get.
Okay, everybody. Continue these relationships later. It's time to switch. Person 2 become person 1. I set her on. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. You can go back to your original seats. Go ahead and thank your partner and return. That didn't work. Hello, hello, hello. Stop connecting. No more connection. No more new friends.
No more connection.
Connection is over. Connection is done. You're alone with your notebook again. Back to your seats. Good job.
Oh. Thank you to everybody whose way involves following instructions.
Yeah. So nice.
That's not our way.
I support the rebelling. If you want to, go rogue and do what you need to do. Gosh, I noticed just how much the energy switched in the room. Like something just totally changed in this space. So thank you for enduring our outdoor educator tendencies. Something also changed inside of me. Like my nervous system just like ratcheted down a bunch, just like watching people's connection. And Lindsay's and my goal was to laugh together on stage, and we just had an uproarious laughter. So we did it. We're done.
We did it.
Probably going. But just I think what we really wanted to bring in was this idea of both having this moment of connection and also feeling into like, okay, what is my way? So if you want to take a couple minutes right now, just jot down some words. What did you notice about your way? How did you go into this exercise? If you were watching yourself from the balcony, thinking about, what am I worried about? What do I pay attention to? What do I not pay attention to? What lets me know that things are okay? Just capture a little bit of that. Sweet. And for those of you whose way involves trying to capture everything and get all of the big, beautiful, brilliant ideas onto the paper, you're going to be disappointed, but we're going to move on right now. So yeah, we have said this, and I'll say it again. Part of getting to know with exquisite intimacy our current ways is a key part of integral coaching, and it is, I believe, what allows for really deep, profound shifts in our lives. So Lindsay and I wanted to do an experiment. We wanted to see what happened when we take integral coaching out into the wilderness. I don't know about you, but for me, like, big things happen in the wilderness. I become more porous. I can see more. I can feel more. I can feel the connection more. I feel myself part of something larger. And with this model of integral coaching overlaid on top of that, we were super curious to see what was going to happen. So we had 10 really brave and beautiful souls who came with us. We did our first trip in September in Yellowstone National Park. We took folks out backpacking for 7 days. For a number of those folks, it was the very first time putting a backpack on their backs, very first time sleeping on the ground. And it was profound what happened out there. So we spent a couple coaching sessions prior to the expedition with each participant individually, getting really keyed into, like, what is your way? And then we went out into the wilderness, opened ourselves up to the stunning beauty of Yellowstone National Park, which I had been slightly unaware of prior to this expedition. And folks did really deep, profound work to find their new ways and to really feel into what was emerging in them and longing to come out. So we want to show you a video that gives you a little taste of what this was like.
It's really hard to put into words what this has done for me. I can feel that it's transformative, but I can't tell all the ways yet. Just that it's maybe exactly what I needed.
I'm Liz,
I'm Lindsay.
and we're the people behind One Wildlife Expeditions, which are transformative journeys into the wilderness with powerful coaching woven through the experience that leads to deep, profound personal change.
And so powerful to be here in this place and deeply feel the power of community.
Check that out. Majestic. That's cool.
Liz and Lindsay offered me a space to show up exactly as I am. And throughout the journey, they continued to offer me a warm space to push myself and grow within myself to become the person that I've always wanted to be. videoed. Okay. I don't know about them, but I'm having fun.
So a trip like this puts you in the fire of leadership moments, like where should we cross the river, or how do I know if we're going to get into camp before dark tonight? And it gives you a chance to really see your ways and work with your ways. Like, are you struggling with uncertainty, or how do I know how to do something if I haven't done it before? And so then you get to lean on new ways of being, either listening to your gut or leaning on the people around you, or really stepping into your power and using your voice. And the folks around you know that this is what you're working on, and they are cheering you on, and they're helping you notice the moments where you are leaning into new way capabilities. And that gives you an opportunity to really know inside of yourself that new and different things are possible, to know what that feels like. And that opens up so much possibility for what can be different in your life for the places where you're stuck.
Bank, and can I see that there's a good exit, or am I going to be like chest deep in a big eddy, like, oh, trying to scramble out?
I mean, I think, having never worked with a coach before at all, the consistent and regular sort of laying out of questions to think about was really helpful for me. And then, day to day, having something to both think about in my head, but also to talk about with others on the trail, and sort of bat these ideas around, but in this very guided, facilitated way, so helpful. And then I think tying that each day to a physical practice was really just lovely and helpful, because it wasn't just a backpacking trip.
You are learning them and practicing all of the new skills so often that you wind up feeling really empowered.
I'm Lindsay, I'm an integral coach, and I've been an outdoor educator for over a decade. Integral coaching is about looking at our current ways and looking at places in our lives where we're really feeling stuck.
My job as a coach is to help you catch yourself in the act of limiting beliefs and help you try new things, feel confident in new ways, and take that home.
Wait, okay, so this
there should be 3 Charles.
Do we have literally just like 4 miles to go? We have
The way that I was before we went was very fast-paced. Always doing, going. And now I was able to practice and have been able to practice and bring more intentionality to simply slowing down and creating and allowing space to see and hear and observe and be more creative.
To have the support and the framework of Lindsay and Liz and the group itself, it just is exponential compared to what you can do and experience on your own. And I have done lots of coaching and therapy, and there's just absolutely no comparison. Being out here, there's just nothing like it. There's just nothing like it. So, thank you.
I'm fighting till the end. We are the champions. We are the champions. No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world.
It's nice to get transported back a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah, so a lot happens in the wilderness. A lot gets opened up. I think the possibilities in us come into high definition, and what we can see and feel and do differently, in my experience anyway, becomes exponential on a wilderness expedition. And so I want to take you a little bit into an experience of one of our participants. I want you to meet Lila is incredible. She has had an incredibly successful career. She has been in charge of like vast swaths of major corporations. She's an incredible leader. She is inspiring. People are drawn to her. She's the mentor that you want to be mentoring with if you're part of Womentum. Part of her way was to tend and nurture and like let the fire of her people's dreams come alive. So she was orchestrating everything behind the scenes to make sure that her people, her family, her husband could like live their most full expressions of themselves. And then what started happening for her is that she realized that she had forgotten how to dream, and she had neglected her own dreams. Part of that was midlife. She felt like she was sort of staring down the barrel of end of life of like, oh, okay, the second half really matters. How do I want to show up? And so just as she was having these realizations and starting to feel this discomfort of like, oh, wait a minute, what am I doing? Her husband got offered his dream job. It was like the impact that he wanted to have in the world. And it meant taking a big pay cut. And so Lila, just as she was considering like opening herself up or maybe moving or doing something else, said, you know what? I'm going to take a bigger job with more responsibility and higher pay so that I can like support this dream of my husband's. And she could feel how painful that was for herself. And what would happen when she would bump up against that pain of like, oh my gosh, not only have I neglected my own dreams, but I've even forgotten how to dream. And so when she would bump up against that pain, she would get busy. She would like do more, go faster. She'd literally go for runs when she like bumped into the discomfort of what she did not know what her dream was and what she needed and wanted. Gosh, so then she came on this expedition. And on the trip, she deliberately practiced slowing down. Part of it is the beauty of Yellowstone. You can't just go charging by. She had to stop. She had to look. She had to listen to herself and feel what was happening. And it was amazing to watch her. Her pace slowed. Her voice slowed. Her attention slowed. She also stopped managing. She was the leader of the day on one of the days that was a really tough, grueling day. And I could see her. We were passing some strangers on the trail. I could see her about to open her mouth and try to get information to find out what the next stretch of trail was going to be like so she could manage and prepare her people and make sure that we were all okay. And you know what? Instead of asking for more information, she closed her mouth and let it be okay and let the whole rest of the day unfold without having to like take care of us. It sounds like a really simple thing, and it was such a big move that she made. Lila called me a couple weeks ago just to tell me this story. So, I mean, she managed, she goes, she like gets shit done. Thank God she gets shit done, and she helps me get shit done. She texts me and says like, oh, have you done those like life tasks you said you really wanted to work on? Like, I need Lila. Thank you, Lila. But so she was taking her kid to a sports practice and was sitting in the bleachers. And Lila's normal way would be to hammer through tasks, get stuff done, fire off 50 emails in that time sitting in the bleachers. Instead, what she did was she pulled out her watercolor paints and started painting without a plan for what she was going to paint, and just let something emerge in that space. And our kid comes up at the end of practice and says, "Oh my God, is something wrong? Are you angry? Should I be worried?" And Lila's like, no, I'm really good. And her kid goes like, "Oh my gosh, you are. You're in your bliss." And she's like, "Yeah, you're right." And so what Lila's been doing is making some space for her dreams to bubble up. She's okay with not knowing what her next thing is, what her big, full living dream is going to be, but she's giving herself space to be with that mystery of what's emerging. She hasn't run off to join the circus. She hasn't quit her family or quit her big job, but she's doing this move, and it is such a deeply profound move that she's making to give this space. So that's Lila's story.
I want to tell you a little about Melissa. See what comes up about your way. We're so glad Melissa was on our expedition. Her energy was incredible, and it came through a lifetime of practice. She'd been a caretaker many times in her life. Other people going through hard stuff, she saw it as her job to keep things light, be the cheerleader, be the mascot. And before she came on her trip this last year, she lost her husband, and she was grieving and getting ready to rebuild a life with herself at the center. So her work on our trip was to get really comfortable with herself on her own, to trust her strength and know she was okay. On our trip, her current way came through. When other people would share something vulnerable or there were tears, Melissa was the first one out of her seat, arms around her. "I've got you, girl. I've been there. We've got this together. I've got this poem for you." She was uncomfortable with that emotion, with that feeling, with that person, but also in herself. She didn't trust herself to sit in that discomfort. So out in Yellowstone, I offered her this practice, a new way stretch, that in those moments, when the emotion runs high, when you want to fill that space, take a breath and put your hand on your heart and feel that desire, feel all that love you have for that person, and give it to yourself as well, and trust that that person will feel your love, and trust that they can handle that discomfort as well. So this physical move of putting her hand on her heart was Melissa starting to build a new pattern in her life of, "I've got this, we can make it through this." And she's taken it home as she starts to build this new chapter of her life.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa.
Yeah, so those are some stories of some sort of getting really intimately familiar with current way and thinking about like what the new way stretch is. What's the expansion? What's the sort of 10% shift that lets a part of me that maybe has been dormant come alive? We're going to teach a framework that informs a ton of our coaching. And I'm going to teach it here with slides. Normally what I would be doing is teaching this in an alpine meadow. So I'm just going to do a little outdoor educator here for a moment because it makes me feel good. And we're making a quadrant. Can folks kind of see? You get the idea. It's a group, there's 4 squares. Okay. So what integral theory tells us is that in any given moment, 4 things are occurring simultaneously. And the 4 things exist on these 2 axes. So one axis is individual, collective, and the other axis is interior, exterior. I'm actually going to flip those around so everybody can see it.
Yeah.
Yes. So interior, exterior. So we've got these 4 different dimensions happening at any given time in any given moment. So over here, I've got the interior individual experience. So right now, I am having an interior individual experience. I can feel my values, my feelings. I deeply value education, and I want education to be relevant and sticky and grippy, to use Bonnie's words. And a part of me is really uncomfortable that I'm doing a lot of talking right now, that we're not doing this big emergent process together. And so I can sense that happening inside of me. I can also feel myself relaxing as I've moved more into this presentation. I can feel a feeling of some nervousness, some groundedness, and a feeling of really caring. I care so much about this work and really wanting to share it with you all in a meaningful way. So that's what's happening inside of me right now. You can't tell that that's what's happening. I just told you, but that's my internal individual experience. Okay? Individual interior. Not so creatively named in integral theory as the upper left. You will. Didn't make the theory up. Okay, so interior. Then I go into the exterior individual experience. This is what I am doing. These are my behaviors. These are my habits. This is what you can see me do right now. You can see that I talk with my hands. I've been flapping these things all morning. You can see that I am, you can probably notice I'm following my notes here. Spoiler alert, there's lots of great notes on these little monitors here. It really helps. So I'm following my notes. I'm talking with my hands. You can tell when I'm taking a breath. This is something that is also happening in any given moment, is the observable actions and behaviors of the individual. Then I go over here into the not very creatively named lower left. This is the relationship space. This is what happened when we asked you all to start talking to each other, and the whole energy of the room changed. I can feel the relationships. I can feel my own nervous system kind of ratchet down when I start feeling you in the audience. Ruth, you've been doing such a beautiful job at nodding at me, and I feel that. And that is the lower left lighting up. So the lower left is is the kind of collective, the us, the we. Okay? So that is happening any given moment, any occurrence, there's this relational quality. Then we come over here to the collective exterior. So this is systems, processes, structures. The reason that I am talking to you right now is because an organization called Womentum exists. And Womentum puts on this conference. And the conference organizers decided to invite Lindsay and I to come and speak. And so the structures that are in place led me to be here. We have this amazing technology in this auditorium. Patrick is running our slides for us and making magic happen, and this mic is working. All of the system structures, processes, the larger kind of context is informing this moment right now. Okay. Can I have a show of hands of folks who can buy the idea that we have all four of these things happening in any given time? Is this making enough sense for us to move? Beautiful. Okay. So then the thing that integral coaching brought on board was the idea that each of us as humans have a quadrant that we tend to orient from. It's sort of our center of gravity, our place that we go to first for sense making. If you haven't already figured this out, part of my way involves really living in the upper left. I make a lot of sense out of my internal experience. When I was struggling to get my coaching business off the ground, I was obsessed with what was happening inside of me, my thoughts, my feelings, my values, my why, the gripping why. That's not hard for me. I know that stuff. It really is inside of me. I'm like deeply aware of what my internal experience is. What I didn't have going on when I was trying to launch my coaching business was the lower left and the upper right. The action, the doing, and the relationships. But I was like deeply embedded in my own interior experience. Part of why I love coaching is it's like really good for folks who are obsessed with self-examination. Like, boy, can I do that. Yeah, so for me in the upper left, we can have these tendencies to like overemphasize or over-rely on the upper left. And what that can look like is almost a quality of like rumination or even self-obsession, like this sort of navel-gazing quality of like, okay, what is this about? What does this mean for me? The idea of like not having meaning can be paralyzing. It can mean like nothing happens. Or if meaning is not totally aligned, it can be, there can be this way of sort of like overemphasizing of like, oh, I can't move unless I have meaning. Like, I think my wife would love it if I took the recycling out a little bit more frequently, but it's really hard for me unless I find meaning in the task. Okay, so that's sort of like overemphasizing the upper left. Underemphasizing the upper left can look like not really having this why, or not really knowing like, oh, what's this like for me? How do I feel about this? Feeling a little sort of like the invitations to like go inside, or Bonnie's invitation of like, what do you want? That can leave you feeling a little bit blank, or like, what do I want? Like the going inside and the examining of the interior, that can, underemphasizing the upper left can look and feel like this sort of like, oh, I don't really know, okay? So what I want you to do, because upper left or individual interior is not very sexy, I want you to write some words down. I want you to draw a grid in your notebook and just write some words down of what lets the upper left quadrant make sense to you. How would you describe it? How are you going to know it? What makes it sticky for you? So write down a couple words. And then I want you to put a star if you think this might be a quadrant that you overemphasize. And put a question mark if you think it might be an underemphasis. Maybe just show of hands. Anybody out there think they're an upper left overemphasizer? I see you. I see you. The long hours of rumination, I'm right there with you. Painful, right? And beautiful. Okay, so that's the upper left. Upper right. We've got the going, the doing, the action, the accomplishment, the achievement. Lila, boy, does she live in the upper right. She can get shit done. And thank goodness for the folks who live in the upper right, because nothing would exist in the world without the getters of the shit done. Thank you all of you who are upper right people. We need you. Great. So overemphasizing in the upper right can look and feel like this sense of go, this sense of drive that sometimes maybe is just for the sake of the go and the drive. There maybe is a missing sense of like, I don't know why, I just go. There can be discomfort when there's stillness or confusion or uncertainty. So there can be just this sort of automatic reflex to just like be in action, be in motion, be doing something. So that's what like overemphasizing looks and feels like. Underemphasizing in the upper right looks and feels like there can be a really tough, making the shift from thought to action can be incredibly difficult. It can be really hard to find the momentum, to find the, almost like the energetic impulse to like move in to go. I definitely struggle in the upper right. Anybody else have the like, oh, it's hard to like get going. It's hard to like do the thing. I talk to my friends and they like tick off like what they've gotten through in their to-do list in a day, and my jaw is on the floor. So I see you, upper right under emphasizers. Yeah, take a minute, write down your description for what the upper right looks and feels like for you, so you know it has meaning for you. And then put your little star if that feels like a overemphasized quadrant, and a question mark if it's an underemphasized. Anybody feeling like there's an overemphasis in the upper right? I see you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for getting this stuff done. Sweet. Over here, we have the lower left. And so Lindsay gave us such a beautiful story of what some lower left looks and feels like. Lower left can be like deep attunement to the collective. And thank God for the lower left. Everybody needs a lower left person in their life. I need Lindsay, and you all need a lower left person. If you don't have one, go find them right away. There can be such deep skill in this quadrant of really getting the field, getting the us. I think different sort of cultural orientations, folks who come from collective cultures, are really, really good at this. I think the culture that I come from, an individualist culture, often neglects the lower left. And so overemphasis in the lower left can look and feel like this sort of constant scanning. The like, okay, how are my people? If I know if I'm okay by deciding if you're okay. So there's this like sort of outward attunement, and you can lose this sense of like, who am I? I think for folks who are socialized female, there can be a real sort of cultural orientation to your job is to scan for the okayness of the people around you. I don't know if that feels like a resonant statement, but it's something that feels true to me. I think parenting can bring this on a lot. But so the overemphasis looks and feels like this sort of, like more information is coming from the outside in than from the inside out. Does that make sense? Cool. And so then the underemphasis in the lower left can look like leaving people behind, not attending to relationship, not checking in about the impact that we might be having on other people. There can be this sense of like steamrolling. We might have all worked in organizations or in like our work life might have led us to places where the lower left is really underemphasized. And this feeling of like, oh, nobody like cares about me. So go ahead, write your notes down about what the lower left looks and feels like. And then give yourself a star if this is an overemphasized quadrant. Give yourself a question mark if this is something that maybe like doesn't light up for you as much. And then we have our lower right. If I were presenting at an engineering conference right now, there would probably be a lot of people really lit up when we're talking about the lower right. So these folks, I call these people the spreadsheet people. The people who can see 16 steps ahead, who know the structures and processes and the systems that are going to support the thing. Folks who orient from the lower right are often like, if I can see the big picture, if I can see the system, then I know where my place is, then I start feeling good. Yeah, these folks have this amazing knowledge of like, okay, if I can like tweak this lever, then like these 6 things are gonna happen. They can like plan out really far in advance, and they often give really good deep structure to organizations, to groups, to, yeah. So overemphasis in the lower right can look and feel a bit like sort of endless gathering of information. That the strategy, the potential connections, the designing, the building out can go on forever, and it's never actually done. There's never actually enough because you can like see all the other possible contributions and all the other possible ways. Underemphasis in the lower right can look and feel like kind of not really having a container to work in, a sort of a feeling of lost or groundlessness, or sort of like, Right now, I'm like really heavily relying on the lower right. I've got notes up here. Lindsay and I built a structure for the talk that we were gonna give. I need to like rest inside of that. And when you don't have that, if I just like come up here to like see what was gonna happen, you'd all be a little bit confused. Like, what is going on? Yeah, I see some nods out there. Is the lower right kind of making sense and feeling? Anybody feeling like they might overemphasize in the lower right, or like that's their zone? Sweet. Okay, so write your words down so that this makes sense. And then give yourself a star or give yourself a question mark. Okay. Does anybody have all 4 of them starred? Great, you're gonna have to pick one, if you can. And maybe to put some context in this, think about your gripping thing. Think about the thing that matters, that's gonna give you that visceral reaction of like, oh, this is the thing I care most about. And then how are you approaching that? What lights up for you? Is it what quadrant lights up? Sweet. Bonnie, I was going to ask if you wanted to share, but you're also saying that all 4. Is there one that? I got it. Can you? Okay, come on up. Yeah, I wanted to ask just so that we can like see how other people are relating to this. Bonnie, do you have a quadrant that you think you might?
I did identify with all of them, the least with the lower right.
Okay.
But my creative side, when you said vision and possibility, I went, oh yeah, that there is that thing in me. But when your invitation towards what's gripping me right now, I would say I'm deeply in the lower left.
Beautiful. Okay. I'm going to ask you to stand there for a second. I'm going to ask one more thing from you, and I'm going to ask all of us right now to think about, if you have yourself located in a quadrant, what would be a stretch move into one of the quadrants that you maybe don't orient from, or doesn't really make sense to you, or it doesn't really light up for you? And so this is something we're going to ask you to do, a stretch move today as we do the life brief work. So it might be, if the lower left does not light up for you, it might be that like a stretch move would be to like go to somebody that you feel really drawn to and try and like create some relational quality, like make a connection. If you are really not lit up in the upper left, or if you're a sort of an upper right person, you're like, okay, yeah, I want to do this life brief. I can like see the list, all the things I'm going to add. I've got some nods over there. Okay, so maybe your work is to give yourself some upper left, to say, I'm going to sit for 5 minutes quietly. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm not going to go into action. I'm just going to check in with myself. What do I think? What do I feel? Why does this matter to me? Maybe you're going to really lean onto the lower right. Is there structures and processes and systems that already exist that could help you in your life brief work? Is there a class or a book or a teacher or a community organization that you could lean into that like gives you some structure around the thing that matters to you so deeply? Or if you're like me and an underemphasizer in the upper right, maybe you're going to do something today. Not just think about it, but actually do something. Put a meeting on the calendar. Text somebody that is going to help you with your life brief. Do some action. Okay. Bonnie, can you think of something that might be for a sticky thing that you're working on, like a stretch move that would maybe?
Right here.
Okay. What would a move be that would maybe?
I think stepping out of the relational and the need to serve all the people and all the things, and to actually organize myself and create some systems, because right now my life is unsustainable. There's too much, and I need systems to lean on. So I have boundaries, and I can get to the things that matter most.
Oh, beautiful. Thanks, Bonnie.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Thanks for playing. Yeah. Okay. So take all of what we've just done, your way that showed up for you as you went to go into the pair and share activity, what you are just picking up in terms of your way, in terms of an orienting quadrant, and then think about what would be the stretch move. And then I want you to actually write it down. The physical act of writing lets things, I think you will tell us this over and over again, but lets things become real and bubble through us. So write down, what is one stretch move that I am going to make today? And it doesn't have to be big. You don't have to run away and join the circus. But a 10% kind of expansion. Is that current way? Do we want to honor the rebelliousness in you, or does that feel new? Okay. So maybe you want to get really curious about, okay, what is this rebellious part trying to do for me?
New way moves. You're going to witness some new way moves, but not just witness, you're going to join me in one, should you choose, of course. You have agency and choice. And yet, I really would love if you did. So here's the context. We were in Yellowstone. It was our longest hiking day. We'd gone 6 miles. We had at least 4 to go, maybe 5. It was 4 p.m. We called it the middle-aged mutiny. Bodies were rebelling. We were tired. People were nervous. We haven't hiked past dark before. We haven't even considered not making it to our next camp. Can we do this? We're out there in small groups. Liz has her own group. I have mine. We needed to change the energy drastically and right away if we were going to make it where we were trying to go. So, thank goodness, our friend Benji was there on the trip, and she brought this amazing new way move. It happened to be a chant, and I'm going to ask you to do it with me, okay? So, if you're willing, and if you can, stand up. And here's how it's going to go. Make yourself a little space. This is new way for me, new way at a leadership conference. I am going to, from my perspective, yell something at you all. And I'm going to do some physical moves. You're going to watch me. And then you're going to yell it back to me, please, as loud as you can. The words are going to be on the screen as backup. Anything else?
You got this.
Okay. Here we go. I'm big. I'm strong. I'm ready for whatever comes along.
I'm big. I'm strong. I'm ready for whatever comes along.
I've got good friends. We'll stick together until the end.
I've got good friends. We'll stick together until the end.
I like myself. I'm worth a lot. And you can't tell me that I'm not.
I like myself. I'm worth a lot. And you can't tell me that I'm not.
Because you can't see inside of me.
Because you can't see inside of me.
Self-worth.
Self-worth.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for playing. That was awesome, right? Can you feel what's different inside of you? Can you feel how something just shifted, right? So that's part of what we're doing here, is offering opportunities to feel yourself differently inside and to feel new possibilities opening up. And that's part of what we're doing with One Wildlife Expeditions, is getting that exquisite clarity with like, what is my way? And then offering this expanded possibility that feels different from the inside out. We would love to go camping with you if you want to come. What just happened might say, give you more of a yes or a no based on, we might force you to chant. Yeah, our next expedition is happening in Utah in the spring, in the crazy Canyonlands. Yeah, and we would love to go on adventures with you down the road. So thanks so much for having us. And Bonnie and Ruth, thank you for creating this incredible space that we get to be part of.
Thank you.